ladies, gentlefolk, and everyone else. This is a bit of a delayed recording. This match has been played before, and the other one, but we're just catching up on these, making sure we're all good. And we've recorded every match that RM has played this year. Happy holidays to everyone who's celebrating, whoever is not. Happy winter or summer, depending on what hemisphere you're in. Today, we're going to be casting Remember Me versus Not Your Average Waifus. Teams coming into this, Remember Me, of course, dropping a map 2 in a row right now. Looking to get back on the winning streak here. Not Your Average Waifus, of course, picking up a W. Of course, since we're going to do this a little later, we do have access to little replays and other things like that. But let's just jump right into it, as we're going to be checking out Ilios well. Transition that properly. We're going to have Ilios on the spectator cast right now. Bans are as followed. Remember Me, banning the Zarya Lucio, coming out from Not Your Average Waifu. Of course, the banned phases are going to be a little more, as Your Average Waifu has a long name. Looking at the current lineup, Hammerpaw, Nightmare, Jericho, Sam, and Raza, your standard Remember Me lineup for Season 7 is coming up on the screen. On the side of Not Your Average Waifu, you got Blackout, Dre, Grim, Ali, and Mono. Hammerpaw is going to be on this Winston here. This is going to be a really box standard set up for everyone involved. Talk about which we're going to see Raza. If you watched Raza's coaching session yesterday, which you should, twitch.tv backslash Raza OW, you see him get coached by the one and only of Team Liquid. You see the Vendetta coming out on the scene of You're Not Your Average Waifu. Dre putting a lot of damage into Hammer. Gonna need some top up, and that's exactly what they're gonna get from Nightmare. You see that Vendetta able to really pepper down it. Hammer does get Ali, Not Your Average Waifu's hit scan player, but I'm pretty sure that's off a bunch of other people here. This comp from Not Your Average Waifu's main thing is a really brawl-centric comp. You know, losing that Juno to Jericho is a big deal. Only going to have that break here. Juno's going to be your main heal, but plays quite well into Remember Me's comp. But as we talked about, Jericho, you know, weaving his way into this point, getting both supports, opens the door for the rest of the team as Sam and Hammerpaw clean up the rest. Not Your Average Waifu does get point presence, however, and is sitting at a nice 28%. We're going to go to a Hammerpaw POV, as he is 62% of the way to it all. Nightmare coming up quite soon here with Sune Rush. Raza at 83% and counting. On the side of Your Not Average Waifu, of course, Grim, having to sustain through most of that fight, does have a lot of it. Hammerpaw got a lot of cleave, but also is getting cleaved out here. Down. This comp from Not Your Average Waifu, very good at holding this spawn door. Very difficult for Remember Me to engage, but here comes the bullet shot. Beautiful. Hits Nightmare, I think. And talking about which is punished out. Hammer pops the primal, but as you can see, the health bar is chunked down. Everyone looks inside of it. Talking about Jericho goes into this death door, and also Hammer finding their way back to spawn. Remember, he's going to fall back and try to regroup. But unlike the first fight, if you don't have Jericho weaving in and out, getting those beautiful picks on whoever is low on Not Your Average Waifu, it's going to be very difficult for it. Talking about which, look at over to a Jericho POV, as he has the pulse bomb. So let's see what work can get done. Nothing to cleanse it, so you think you're going to have to, but there is multiple abilities that can just kind of sustain through it. Talking about which, you see Momo getting a lot of damage dealt via Raza. A beautiful anti-nade goes on to Grim. Jericho's looking to finish it off, but doesn't get it. Hammer does get it at the end of the day. Bolo shot thrown in, as well as a Kitsune rush. The Annihilation comes out for Not Your Average Waifus here. Hammer going down. Raza and Sam following suit. An expensive team fight, and a team fight Remember Me needed to win, and not gonna find it with the ults they used here. As Jericho goes down, OT has been procced. Hammer's going to be the next one to step up here. Does not get it. Gets blocked off by that Vendetta. And Not Your Average Waifu is going to take first point here on Ilios well. Mike is kind of quiet. Salutations, my fine brother. How are you doing, Jake? It's good to see you. Let me increase that mic volume just a smidge. messing around with that a little bit. Alright, hopefully that's good. Merry Christmas, or Happy Holidays. Hope you are in a festive mood, but talking about in a festive mood, let's see what's going on in Overwatch here as we head to Ilios Well. Same comp going to be around for basically both teams. You see the switch up on from Remember Me to the Wu Ying Ana here. I'll scratch that. We do have the Blackout, the tank player for Not Your Average Waifu. It's going over to D.Va. This point here, a bit more mobile of a comp. You see Dre, Echo player, or Flex DPS for Not Your Average Waifu, but talking about which, not going to see him too much longer. Sam finds a water ball onto him. But a bit more mobile of a comp here, a bit more sustained brawl here. Talking about which, remember he's going to get point presence here quite handily. As Nightmare finds the D.Va, the baby D.Va, with an anti-nade. Beautiful comp. You see, remember me sticking onto this more mobile dive comp. Blackout, well, it does have the mobility of a bit of a dive comp with that D.Va. Acts a bit more brawly with that Brig and Juno here. Of course, the Freya always deadly. Talking about which, we're going to go see Raz's POV as he's hunting for these backlines. One goes down. A beautiful kite into the head, followed by an anti-nade on from Nightmare. Does get the kill onto Grim. Jericho goes into the well, I guess. Hammer does find Dre. We're going to go actually back that up. See how Jericho goes into the well here. Gets the kill onto the Grim. Recalls. Get peppered by Dre and just kind of blinks out of it. You hate to see that, Jericho. Not having the not being situationally aware of that one. But with the pick onto Grim here, you see Not Your Average Waifu backs up. Remember, we get 40% and counting for Ilios Well. Now you see Raza here getting peppered out, and actually both targets dive onto it. Raza gets out. Not Your Average Waifu stacked as 4. Grim does fail the jump check here, and now has to play on low ground. In a dangerous situation, Jericho very much looking at him. Talking about which, you see Not Your Average Waifu is taking this position on to the windmill. And with that speed ring, you saw they wanted to engage, but they see a better target. Hammerbot in a difficult situation does get Grim, however. He's immediately traded out, so Remember Me is out of take, and 69% is where Remember Me's point progress is going to top as Not Your Average Waifu trades it out. Bolo shot coming in, finds Nightmare. Not Your Average Waifu is going to clean this up quite... Oh, Jericho throws a pulse bomb into a D.Va Matrix. That's going to get eaten up quite handily. And Not Your Average Waifus are going to start getting onto the board. You see Jericho hunting down this Freya and almost goes off the map once more. You see both teams setting up right now exactly where we've seen them for the last 2 fights. You see Jericho trying to take this Tracer 1v1, the pulse bomb onto Hammer. Gonna get in response. A Russian current, not gonna get the D.Va mech, but the bomb is out. Hammer takes a large chunk of damage from the D.Va bomb, but survives. Sam finds Momo here. Hammer jumps into the well here, so not the only person on Remember Me to do that, but they do get the point flip here. Not Your Average Waifu, 50%. Remember Me at 72%. The fight is just going to be cleaning up. I say that Jericho finds 2 here. Finds Grim, finds Dre. It is just the D.Va on Not Your Average Waifu. Jericho coming up big on the point here. We're going to go over to Raz's POV as he has this Bolo shot ready. 89% and counting. Not Your Average Waifu is going to have to step up here. They do only have the Juno ult. And that's exactly comes down straight onto the point. Bolo shot out, does hit his intended target of the Freya on the enemy team. However, no follow-up EOs available. Remember Me kind of just back out, regroup, wanted to take this fight once more. No one died there. Just felt like they could get a better position. You see the dive in, trying to find this backline. This Juno very susceptible. And that's a story of this entire backline. Without that break to help the Juno here, it's going to be really easy for Hammer and Jericho to get into it. Kind of greeting it with that Kiriko. Talking about which, Hammer finds Kiriko. Baby Diva is mech. Raza in a difficult situation over here, and Cage does die. Jericho finds one on to Dre. Remember Me needs to clean this fight up fast as their bleeding percentage here. Blackout still does not have mech. 90% counting does get it. Hammer, though, puts the damage down and trades it out. Remember Me, slow last fight. They are going to get Ilios well. So it is currently 1-1. I forgot also to lower the music down. My apologies for that. Here you go. Ready for battle. And now we are on map point here on Ilios. Remember Me 1, Not Your Average Waifus 1. All comes down to Ilios Ruins. And since if you have been following Remember Me through any sort of time here, we're going to be seeing their patent ball comp on Ilios Ruins. Of course, Sam and Nightmare staying up on to it. Not Your Average Waifu going back to their comp that worked the first round here. As you see, the teams get in position. Nightmare gets control of their high ground. Make sure that's not going to be available for any of them. But this comp they're running, they really want to get Brawl. That was a beautiful push into the point by Hammerpaw, allowing a bunch of chip damage to come into Blackout. The tank player on the side of Not Your Average Waifus, but we do see a bit of a switch up. We do see the TP out. A beautiful nade finds 3 by Nightmare. Difficult situations. And talking about which Nightmare gets traded out in that exchange. Not Your Average Waifu finds their one target they want and is good. However, Raza, with the help of Hammer and Jericho, do trade out Grim. The backline for Not Your Average Waifus is gone. Blackout does find one more pick. Sam trying to step up onto the point, trying to get that control. It is now a 2v2. It's Hammer Jericho versus Blackout Ali. This damage is permanent for both sides. However, Nightmare is currently back. Annihilation Pummel form is out. Beautiful nade on to Blackout. That's the take for the Not Your Average Waifus. And that's going to force them back as Remember Me is looking to get their progress. I say that, but Not Your Average Waifus is still hanging around this midsection point. And you see Grim and the Vendetta here on the Not Your Average Waifu. But a beautiful nade coming in for 2. That's going to catch Grim and Dre here out. And that's going to finally secure the point capture for Remember Me. You saw Dre, you saw Not Your Average Waifu going on to that sim comp, wants to be a bit more maneuverable, but this ball is a great disruptor for the sim, especially anytime they're going to do TPs. Did get it. It's fine against the Rams. Absolutely, but talking about which, Jericho does get the pulse bomb here. You see the Vendetta going deep, finds Nightmare, Raza trading that out. Hammer on the back end finally kills 2. Raza gonna pop down the Blackout here. Yeah, the question never was onto the ball. It was never onto that. Talking about which, the score line right now, 50% and accounting for Remember Me, 0 for Not Your Average Waifus coming in. True, they just switched out. Talking about which, Sam gets isolated onto Mega, goes down. That Vendetta so strong at getting on top of the support line. Talking about which, you saw that the support line, Remember Me, is completely gone. Vendetta with the mobility is crazy. Rig Alt is popped out though. So Remember Me not going to come out empty-handed with this. They do allow the point flip at 79%. Not Your Average Waifu finally getting on top of the board here. Dre finds Raza. I wasn't even looking at that, but it looks like Raza was in the back line here. Probably repositioned for this team. Gonna force a bit of Remember Me to regroup here. They look like they want to fight. Though the Ana is slowed and finally traded out. But Russian Current is in. Gonna get one here, and we're gonna have a fight into this mini room. Sam does get the moment here. I don't know what the sword swing is, but Hammer does get value onto the mines. The Vendetta says that the Annihilation was popped by Not Your Average Waifus. So a few ults popped there. And it looks like in favor of Not Your Average Waifus. Yeah, but Not gonna say that, but we do see a nano slam. That is good. Gonna do a replay of that so we get negative hammer out. You see this nano gonna come through by the side of Nightmare. Hammer setting up for this disruption onto the back line. See him get forced a little bit here. Here comes the nano. Slam onto that and causes a Rajax here. Beautiful play by Remember Me. They do trade out Nightmare though here. And the Vendetta is, again, caught by Hammerpaw. That's going to give him point position, but they did give a lot of progress over to Not Your Average Waifu, now at 63%. Remember Me at 87 and counting. We're going to see the final fight territory come in. The only ults right now on the side are the Freeha on the side of Not Your Average Waifu in Jericho with this Pulse Bomb. We're going to go over to the Jericho POV as to see if this opens up. He sees the Grim and he goes wide. Does not get it. The touch is good for Not Your Average Waifu. You see Hammer slamming this backline of this Brig Juno. Jericho following up and getting the kills. Bolo is good. Nightmare is traded out, but a lot of people are low here on the side of Not Your Average Waifu. Sam goes down. There is no backline for Remember Me anymore. Nor is that the case for Not Your Average Waifu, however. The Baby Diva is put out of mech. Vendetta, a very strong sustained character as fights go on longer. You see the Diva finally taken out. Dre finds Jericho's head. Mine's on point to force them away. However, the Brig is now back for Not Your Average Waifu. Shots going deep in it. Hammer quite low, does not want to engage. 99% for Remember Me as Not Your Average Waifu does get the team flip here. Slam coming out right here. Bolo shot is good on top of the Brig. That's half health, but the Brig has built the rally. Brig does find Jericho here with the rally bash. Hammer in a difficult situation. A lot of people looking at him, a lot of sustain going on. Blackout finds Raza here, and Hammer needs to get out. Talking about which, we have ults coming up on the board, but we need a final touch for Remember Me. 96% and counting for Not Your Average Waifu. Hammer doesn't get it. You see the backline of Remember Me struggling to survive against this comp right now. Nightmare Sam found out. Bolo shot onto Hammer. That's going to slow him down completely. Finishes off. Jericho's going to be the last to touch in this overtime situation here. As Raza goes down, and it looks like that's all she wrote for Remember Me. Victory slips through their fingertips as Not Your Average Waifu gets the point. Blizz World, the bands were Wu Yang, Vendetta. Switch over to 100% pick like the band. Changed my mind. Lucio wasn't banned, they would pick Kiriko Lucio. No, this is the wrong game. I'm sitting there like, why the fuck am I saying this? This is completely wrong. This was our that was a comp game, That's not even a good comp game, that's what that was. Alright, heading to Blizz World here. You lied. I do not see a Grim on the board. No. And we're on the wrong side too. Boom, bang, bop.
4, 3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming. Defend objective A.
Yeah, we're correct now. Remember Me in red right now. Not Your Average Waifu in blue coming up on the scorecard. We have a very standard comp here on for Dive. Nightmare Jericho on Curie Tracer here. You see the transition over to third point, trying to get that. But the collapse comes in. Raza good and taken care of. They're hunting around now. Sam, as this collapse onto the dive, looks good. Hammerpaw gonna fall down next, and it looks like it's gonna be Jericho and Nightmare, but Jericho does find one. That's a great pick. The spawns are quite a distance away for the defenders here on Blizz World. Go over to Spect Head. Alright, Remember Me is back, looking to re-engage onto this. You see the transition onto the left side here, and the collapse begins once again. Not going to be as sudden as last time. Is Blackout in a dangerous position. Raza is found out over here on coast side. You see a bunch of bolo shots going into Hammerpaw. Needs the care. Has both his supports there for him. Dre peppering him down. Still not fully up. He cannot engage this health pool, and eventually he does get Dre, but Dre trades him out with the Pulse Bomb, having enough of that. Winston trying to put him down. Remember Me looking on shaky grounds right now. You see this transition over to the Diva here. I see the vision. Quite frankly, I don't. We saw that move over to the Diva here. Gonna get a bit more defense matrix up. Trying to block here. Remember, he's gonna look to fight this high ground, as that was the staging position for Not Your Average Waifu. Hammer goes up. He's trying to stay in position to shield. Jericho does go down at the end of this, though. You see the high ground pressure coming out. We're seeing Jericho's dead corpse here, in case you want to love Jericho's dead corpse. Raza does find Grim at the end of that. Mind the color switch. They still haven't fixed that up here. Kitsune Rush is popped by the side of Not Your Average Waifu. Wants to clean the rest of this up. Hammer going off the clip for a quick reset here. Nightmare in a difficult situation. And remember, you got to start talking about their options here, as they're struggling on this Blizz World. Remember, we do have ults coming up on the board. Sam at 94% on this beat. Grim following at 92 for Not Your Average Waifus. Bolo shots are here. Of course, Hammer's going to be falling a bit behind an alt charge here because of the transition over here. He's seen chasing the Tracer over from the left side. However, Remember Me is completely split up. Sam has to pop a beat for 2. Pulse Bomb going wide. 0% stick rate. The bolo shot is good onto Raza, but he can survive through that. Sam does find it. And another Pulse Bomb going wide here. So far, the team split hasn't affected Remember Me too much. Here comes the Kitsune Rush. Hammer in a difficult situation. However, his team is finally there. Raza finding now 1 but 2 here with the OC. Gonna pump the damage into the annihilating Ramatra. Gonna try to chunk him down. Sam does go down here, but Ramatra gets the job done. A very difficult situation there for Remember Me. Does survive with the help of Tam's beat here. Very deadly. If the Lucio and the Soj caught off, they were in a difficult situation there. Basically resetting all ults here, as basically everything was used that fight. The only thing that wasn't is Hammer's Diva Bomb, as it has just came up. And he was a bit behind an alt charge. Talking about which, they're trying to find this high ground. Sam gets taken out by the pummel form of the Ramatra. A lot of people are low on Remember Me. Hammer going a bit too deep. Pops the Diva Bomb. Does get the deep remake back. You see Jericho hunting this free HUD down. Going deep, trying to get this kill. Does not get it. Recall forced. A good progress has been made on the side of Remember Me here. But you see Hammer going deep. His team needs to stay through this or kite away from the Ramatra, who looks to jump on someone with the rest of it. The regroup, I was going to say it was good, but Sam is found out with a few Kitsune headshots. Jericho goes deep, however, has to pull back. That recall is good. Hammer's mech force, no bomb in sight. That means no remech. They're going to have to come back to this one without a tank. Dre does find 2 here. Jericho going down, cleaning up Nightmare. Grim also finds Nightmare at the end of this fight. Sam going to be the last one to go down. And it's just going to be after hard regroup. Remember Me with 1 minute left on the bank. Only has this Pulse Bomb in hand. Pulse Bomb on the side of Dre, though, is good. Enough damage has been done to Blackout in a dangerous situation. Hammerpaw eventually finishes him off after Jericho throws the Pulse Bomb on the back. Raza finds Grim here, and Beely found by Hammer. Right now, the cleanup is trying to come through by Remember Me. Does lose Sam in the process of that. It's just a free huff for Not Your Average Waifu, but meanwhile, Cart making good progress with Hammerpaw sitting on top.
30 seconds remaining.
You see, this control of the high ground is crucial for Remember Me right now. Raza wants it for shooting angles, talking about which gets forced off. The Ramatra of Not Your Average Waifu throws a lot of damage at a Hammer. He's in a very difficult situation. The beat is good for Sam with 5 found out. Kitsune Rush popped by Nightmare. They're going to take what was a dangerous fight into a looking like it's going to win fight here. Hammer finds Blackout. OC popped. The Bolo found, but no good on the side of Not Your Average Waifu. We see the fight going on. Will Hammer get this Lucio? And they do. Second point found out. Memory on to third. You see the advanced positioning held up by Remember Me. Wants to get enough space here. So they don't have to fight over these two corners. See? The symmetric cop coming out, but doesn't matter. Hammer can take that down quite easily, but it is a danger that he has to be aware of. Brea throws 2 explosive bolts into Hammer. Still quite low here. Pummel form is out by the side of Blackout. Jericho does find Beely here on the side flank here. And a beautiful Pulse Bomb. Jericho opened this fight wide open, and you see Remember Me taking full advantage of that and pressing the gas. Hammer finds Blackout here. And it looks like that's all they're going to find, as Not Your Average Waifus does fall back into spawn, but a lot of progress has been made by Remember Me. 27 seconds left on the point here. Trying to find a full capture out. Beat is out by Not Your Average Waifus. A beautiful kite back by Remember Me. So far, no one losing their lives. That beautiful disengage. None of them have beat now. This could be their re-engage opportunity. You see Hammer going over that free hit, trying to get the damage done. In a difficult situation, quite low. Forces the D-Mech. The Kitsune Rush is out, but with the Diva Bomb, you can't really make much use of that. Intentional value or not, they do get the value. Sam goes down. Hammer in a difficult... At one has D-Mech. It is just Nightmare Jericho left on the board. Nightmare going down. It is just Jericho Raza here to fight it out. Beely finds Jericho. The Annihilation has been popped from Blackout to secure this point. Beely finds Jericho, and Remember Me is not going to get third point capture, but very close to it.
Score 0-2. Switching sides.
Sigh. You guys know how this ends.
Initiating match.
You're blaming Hammer for this one, he told me. Big ups to Jericho. How you doing, Jericho? We saw a beautiful Pulse Bomb and double kill onto that fight. The prior fight. Basically, 5 players who love to deathmatch. 5 players who love to deathmatch, but I've never seen them in a deathmatch lobby. So, you be the judge of that. Having watched that back, what do you guys think you struggled with, and what do you guys think you could have done better for that engage? This left side engage on that Winston was really rough. You got pinched off quite a few times here. Pincered.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We'll find out what they did wrong after this.
Defend objective A.
But Remember Me is going to start fighting here on their first defense. DM Freya Vaults instead of eating 6 of them. True, there was a few times where you did eat Freya Vaults, but not like we didn't all eat our own thing. Talking about which, you see the Sim TP comp on the side, and you're Not Your Average Waifu getting set up on point here. Both backlines doing the same thing here. Nightmare going down quite low. gonna need that backup. Hammer does eat a few bolts here, but Dre finds Nightmare on TPing to that high ground. Remember, he does get this map flip though. Gonna play on the backside, but that does not favor them as they need to touch this point. Who is gonna be the touch here? It's gonna be Jericho. Sam also coming in there, not sure. Remember, we really don't put up a fight here and get kind of just rotated out. Raza does find one kill here going on to it, but that's all she wrote for that Remember Me defense. You guys really just got out-rotated. I'd say your ankle's broken. And talking about which Blackout and Ali gonna try to keep this high ground away from it. To benefit Raza and Nightmare quite ahead. And we see the comps switch up. We're no longer into that Kiri Lucio, but we are on the Lucio Ana. Beautiful anti-nade coming in by Nightmare, however, is quickly cleansed off. See Hammerpaw going over to the Hazard here. A bit more brawly of a character. But good progress has been made by Not Your Average Waifus here. Both teams right now sitting up at poke phase. You see Jericho in a long sight line. Hammer is just going to eat all of that with the Vortex basically throwing him in place here. Jericho's trying to take this 1v1 in this Mega Health Pack room. He is forced down, so we're not going to see him in action for quite some time until that Mega Health Pack comes back where he's going to make the rotation. Talking about which, a nade goes on to Blackout, however, no follow-up can be used. It's just sitting there tempting him. You see Jericho fighting onto that break. An OC on side of Remember Me and a Kitsune Rush for that. Hammer eats a lot of damage and a beautiful wall cutting it off. Sam pops the beat, only good for 2 here. Gonna go down next. Remember Me kind of getting steamrolled right now. 5 minutes going into third point here. Kirisuzu would go crazy right there. Now Remember Me does have this. Actually, it's going over to basically a full team switch here. You see Hammer going on to the Ramatra. Nightmare gonna stay on to that Ana as they do have the Nano and Jericho on to the Venture. A bit more disruption on to this backline of Not Your Average Waifu, but Not Your Average Waifu do have a bit more ults coming on the board. They do rule it right now. Hammer taking a lot of damage. Annihilation out. Raza getting killed. I think Sam booped the annihilating Ramatra into him. Talking about which the nanoed Hammer, he's not going to find the work they needed to do, but Jericho finds Dre here. Going down next is just Sam stalling cart. Raza Nightmare in the back. A beautiful sleep going on to it. However, with 3 people on this cart progress will start ramping up here. Almost to the golden box of victory. Who's going to be the touch? Hammer's caught in that vortex, and that's going to be all she wrote. A rough one for sure for Remember Me, as they now are on death's door. Going into 2-0. Alright, we're going to transition back. Remember Me on death's door. Not Your Average Waifu. Match point. We're heading to New Queen Street. See if they can't finish Remember Me off. And right now, not looking too good for the RM boys. Kind of looks slow. I think they should never go to Blizzard World, because I don't think Remember Me has ever won on Blizzard World.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Speaking of which, we do see Hammerpaw onto the patented ball here. I do have it. Nightmare sitting on the Ana. Jericho switches over to Genji. That's going to be the first time we see the Genji for it. So we're going to go over to Jericho's POV. See how they open this fight up. The sim is still on the board for Not Your Average Waifu as they still stick onto this standard Ramatra brawl. Very similar to what we saw in a few plays for the World Championship. Ooh, Nightmare does enough damage, has enough damage followed up. Grim gets it. You see Jericho hunting down this Kiriko. Nightmare with 2, actually. I'm focusing on the wrong player. However, Elite does find Jericho at the end of that. does look like a fight win for Remember Me. This team comp a bit more deathmatchy here. All characters can do a sustained amount of damage. And quite frankly, don't want to play too hard with each other. See Raza taking angles, Jericho taking a different. Nightmare by himself over here. Is forced back as his team is taking a different fight. You see the rotation coming into it. Jericho does die here. Apologies as I'm a bit out of breath here. You see Dre does go over to this Vendetta, so a lot of distance can be controlled. Can be... Not controlled. What the fuck is the word for it? Can be covered. There it is. A lot of distance can be covered by Dre here. And you see Not Your Average Waifu taking point control of this bot. A beautiful boop from Sam does get the Vendetta off the point. Jericho slashes in. You don't have to deal with that Vendetta anymore. Remember, he does not allow Not Your Average Waifus to get points here. We're going to go to it, but just about everyone's POV is, like I said, this is a bit deathmatchy of a comp.
I appreciate the support.
Right here. We see the ults coming up. There you go. We're going to go to Hammer's POV here. Give the tank some love and appreciation. Playing the most miserable layer. He sees Kiriko just gets a nice boop onto it. The water is rushing current is out, and it is on to I think Jericho. That's the problem with player POVs. You don't get the full story here, but Sam does find it. Jericho good with their rushing water. Hammerpaw looking for this Kiriko, trying to open it up. Jericho does find it with the assist of Hammer. You don't hear that too often. Those two connecting for the kill onto the Kiriko. Only one ult used there on the side of Remember Me. But on the side of Not Your Average Waifus, they also have a big ult bank. Hammer Me going for a swing through, not finding anything. Here comes a blade and a beat in response for your Not Average Waifu. The nade is no good. Grim going down super low, trying to find the end of it. You see Hammer jumping off opportunity, but Nightmare is there with the alley-oop. He gets the slam, a dunk onto the Lucio here. Raza, talking about which, does get his own. Here, the OC popped. Go over to a Raza POV. Chunking this Ramatra down quite low in a dangerous situation. Hammer looking to end it here. But Raza finding 3 in this fight really opens it up for his team. Hammer still has these minefields out though. And you see that slam onto the Brig. His backline is getting a bit more sustainable, but it doesn't matter when you have the dynamic duo of Raza and Hammer bowling that Brig the entire time. Here comes the Kitsune Rush, the mines to counterplay that. Blackout in a very difficult situation, and a lot of space has been given up by Remember Me. However, Hammer does find a crucial pick onto the Kiriko here, followed by Raza onto the tank. You saw Hammer sit back, really disrupt it. Can't denies it. Is this going to be a full cap? Remember Me look okay. I guess it's a full cap. Remember Me looking like an entirely different team out there. You wonder where this team was before. They full cap New Queen Street, keep themselves alive, but they are still on death's door. Not Your Average Waifu needs one more pick here. Transition. Alright, now we're on the roster. Thank you, Hammerpaw. Love you. But no buts. We're not spoiling it. Let me make sure I have my whole card up correctly. I have next card up too. Yeah, so the bans are actually not Ilari. Why did I see Ilari? Alright, so the bans are as followed as we head on to Shambali. Not Shambali.
5, 4, 3,
Alright. Next bans are as followed. We have the Ana band coming out for Not Your Average Waifu, Remember Me on the sim. And again, we have these backwards, so we're going to transition to the screen real quick. Two teams as followed. We have Hammer back onto this ball. We haven't seen this comp, especially the ball on the side of Remember Me, played on this map. quite some time. You see the slam coming in. The Sigma play, though, Mono does find Jericho here for Not Your Average Waifu. We do see the Sigma comp, which has been making its head in the circuits recently. See quite a few teams. Ali finds Raza here, so Memory is down 2 players. Nightmare does find Dre. Tracer on the side of Not Your Average Waifus here. But yeah, Sigma coming back in a big way. Of course, did have that damage buff, was quickly reverted in the patch notes, but is still a pretty solid tank to go around. As you see, Remember Me fighting for this mini room. Raza with the shield in his face can't do too much on it. Hammer with the slam going out, but Elite in a very difficult situation. Hammer trying to look through that rollout, trying to find Elite here. Rock comes out, does pick up the health pack on the side of the wall. Right now, both teams stalemated on this line. Who's going to blink first? Blackout's going to be a constant pressure onto this here. Jericho does find a lead. The Sojourn further, Not Your Average Waifu. Nightmare finds the Tracer here, and that's going to force Not Your Average Waifu to back out. Without that damage, they cannot stick around, especially with his ball presence being constant. Really, only counterplay is going to be the Sigma Rock here, and eventually the Sigma second perk, where the punch makes them float away. But we don't see what the characters are going to pick here. Here's current stats for you guys. You see, we're talking about which Hammer finds the Wu Yang on the side. Rock avoided. Here comes the Russian currents. Suzu forced out early, does not get the target they want. Hammer and Jericho finds a good up here. Talking about which Hammer Paw does find the Tracer with a bit of help from Sam, it looks like there. This Sigma still wants to stick around, does have only the Wu Yang heals for Not Your Average Waifus here. Remember Me needs to win this to keep their hopes in this series alive. Jericho's recall has been forced, not going to be in this fight for a second. Multiple ults, a beautiful rocks, Hammer slam, denied. Talk about which, here comes the Flux, here comes the OC, and the Kitsune Rush for Not Your Average Waifu. Elite finding Nightmare, but Hammer shutting it down before any more damage can be thrown. You see the mines thrown in. Actually, that was Remember Me's Kitsune Rush. My apologies there. Hammer still hunting the support line down and is good. He's here with Jericho. Jericho has to win this Tracer 1v1 and is good for it. Sam finding the Kiriko on that side and the Sigma going down. Arf. Sam, who got the dog in him, believes that he had something there. Big shout out to Sam. Big shout out to everyone on the side of Remember Me for sticking out here. You see the re-engage, 30 seconds left for Not Your Average Waifu. Kind of struggling against this Hammer Paw ball. Getting disrupted, getting out of position here. Talk about finding out of position. Ali in a very difficult situation there. Jericho in this back line trying to find value. +1 by Nightmare. A very good pincer right now has been formed by Remember Me. And Not Your Average Waifu has to play on this coast side. Not advantageous to where they are, but there's 2 health packs here. The OC is good by Raza. Kitsune Rush thrown out by Not Your Average Waifu, but Raza finds not 1 but 2 headshots here. Sam goes down to Dre. Ali also finding value. Pulse Bomb does go wide on the side of Dre. Blackout switching in the Diva to try to get that comeback here, but Remember Me just needs to clean this fight up faster here. It is possible they could win this out right now here. Hammer Paw with the slam, and looks like they did. Remember Me stops Not Your Average Waifu from getting first. Jericho's bomb does get eaten. That's going to be the second one on the board. Someone write that down. 2 pulse bombs eaten from Jericho. Just this map alone. Alright, Remember Me coming out strong here. Statement win that they needed to keep this series alive. Current score 1-2. In the series. And Remember Me with a good opportunity here to win this out. Remember, if you do like what you're seeing here, Remember Me is on Twitter, twitter.com/ capital R, remember, capital M, me, underscore OW, Twitter.com. Follow us for updates and announcements as we are getting ready in this Christmas season. We do have one announcement coming up here quite soon, so be tuned for that. Now the roster is in the work. But talking about which, this roster looking to get out of their losing ways right now. 4-2. No one spoil anything in chat. We see Jericho on that Widowmaker with the beam. Nightmare gonna go for that 5 orbs. Both shots, no good. Eaten by the Diva Defense Matrix. You see the Diva coming out on the side of Not Your Average Waifu. Want to deal with Hammer Paw a bit better, pressure him out more. Besides, is finding big value on the side of the Sigma. Talking about big value, you see these this 2-hit squad of Jericho, Nightmare coming in, almost finding the kills that they need here. Roll through is good. Disruption is solid. Nightmare and Jericho, this hit squad, you gotta be out looking for it. They find a Dre here. The pile driver is a good. A lot of people on the side of Not Your Average Waifu in danger. Sam with a around the corner. Water ball. Raza killing up 2, and the Diva is out. Gonna stall him out for a bit more. Does not want them to touch payload. 3 are on. Get the maximum momentum. Hammerpaw does leave. Raza going for that wide swing on the angle. They do suspect touches are going to come back in. The recall already forced by the side of Nightmare and Hammerpaw. That's huge. Dr. Dre was going to be the touch for Not Your Average Waifus here. Now it has to be the Diva stepping up. However, a beautiful boot by Sam. Nightmare finding 2 more on the side of this Jericho. Cleaning up quite nicely. Remember me just to clean up the Diva, and that's all she wrote. Remember me. 2-2 and 2 in the series. We're heading to match point, not map point. Alright, and we're back here. Match point. Not Your Average Waifus 2. Remember me 2. As we're going to head to Saravasa here, the final decider of it all, the flashpoint to see who wins everything. And we're seeing a bit of a different look by Remember Me. We saw the Vendetta, you know, I'm not going to say too much on how Remember Me looks on Vendetta, and I was just going to say, it doesn't look great. But we see Jericho onto the Reaper. Maybe this is going to look a bit better. Hammerpaw on to the Zarya. We're going to see how these two teams played out. We're going to go over to a Raza POV. See how this fight starts. We're going to take a shorter angle here. On the side of Not Your Average Waifu is pretty much the same comp, but right now benefiting their Sojourn quite a bit more as you see them on the high ground. Raza is going to be forced to be in a difficult situation here, but stabilizes quite nicely. Looking for the rail shot that they need. Dre playing quite a bit farther back. Jericho in a prime position to hammer down this blackout. Raza does go down, but Sam finds the target here. The TP is out. Sim just looking for any kills that they can get. And now it's just cleanup side for Remember Me. Nightmare with 1. Will he find a second? Does not. Does get the bubble from Hammer, though. The big thing for this team comp is going to be the Jericho Hammer engage. Jericho wants to TP in or sustain through this fight. It's going to be up to Hammer to give him the bubbles to do so. With that, it's going to feed Hammer the charge he needs to be, basically that sim. You talk about which, a lot of damage. Hammerpaw needed the sustain there, did not get it. Jericho does find 1, Nightmare finds 1, but Dre right now is finding... Will Nightmare find another one? Ah, Nightmare comes up victorious, but his team does find the point. Give up the point progress. Remember Me, 66%. Not Your Average Waifu does get the flip, so it's 11%, but Remember quickly gets it back. And we're currently looking at Final Fight territory for Not Your Average Waifus. Remember Me. Looking for this reverse sweep here, and getting this first point is going to be big here. You see Not Your Average Waifu setting up for this engage. Jericho going all wide. The wall is good. Jericho hammering this Lucio. Wants to go for it, but forced to go back. The Russian current is out. Not good for anything. Hammerpaw cuts himself off with that wall. Wanting to go forward with the Russian current. Nightmare does get one, but it's looking kind of rough. Raza wants to win this fight. Throws the OC in it. But eventually recognizes his team is down. Wants to get out. You see the same TMP trying to find the cleanups here, but no good for it. Alts used in that fight were just the Sim Wall and Kitsune Rush for the side of Not Your Average Waifus, who are now sitting at 41%. Remember Me just needs one more. You see Jericho with this Death Blossom, Nightmare with the Kitsune Rush. In a difficult situation, Nightmare buried low. Taking this wide angle does get found out. The Annihilation has been popped. Nightmare Hammer needs to either die fast or get it. But talking about which, both tanks have been traded out. Right now, a 3v3. Who will get the betterment of this point? Jericho goes in, TP's deep. In a difficult... The OC has been popped by Ali. Not Your Average Waifu wants this. Jericho on this right side. Everyone quite low. A beautiful shot comes in, but they do not touch. Remember Me, don't touch. They were in the driver's seat there, and do not close the door. Jericho now falling next. And it looks like there could be some staggers here. Nightmare in difficult situation. Found out. Hammerpaw also half health. Trying to get out. But you see the pressure that's constantly being applied by Not Your Average Waifu. Sure, Raza does get the trade out. Jericho throws it out with two, though. So right now it is a Tank and Kiriko versus Raza and Sam on the Wu Yang and Sode respectfully. That's going to be a lot to ask for, as Not Your Average Waifu is going to try to get point progress. You see the split coming out, trying to out-angle him. But a beautiful wall cuts out Nightmare and Raza. Cuts the point in 2 for the favorite. A beautiful grab finds 4 here. Rushing Water also finds 4. A lot of damage has come out. The Kitsune Rush thrown inside of it. But a little too late, as Remember Me, with both 2 big alts, are going to come up big here and get the point capture. Not Your Average Waifu, 26%. Remember Me, now getting on the board for second point here. After a beautiful grab by Hammer, followed up by a rushing current by Sam. You do see the TP top. This team comp wants to get on top of someone, rush them down quite fast. You see Hammerpaw is going to be that target. Sam also found out. Raza does get a trade here, though, and it looks like Nightmare is going to go for it. But has the damage been done on this team? Currently not having too much of a response. Raza does take the head off. Grim throws himself on point, but Not Your Average Waifu does get the flip. Jericho looking to kill this Ram, and it is good for it. The Sim is going to be the last one touched. It's just going to do his TPing strat. Want to stay alive for as long as possible. Suzu out, so Dre is back up full health. Hammerpaw throws the Annihilation, the Vortex not getting too much use. And we're back to this TPing strat here. Back and forth, back and forth. Raza finds 2 with this Disruptor. Beautiful pick, Hammer. Eventually coming in, finding Beely. Ali does find Raza, however, he's quickly traded out. 77% for Not Your Average Waifu. Remember Me do find their way back into that here. But the question is, are Remember Me able to sustain through this Sim TP? I'm not going to have the answers to not sustain, but ooh, a beautiful 1v1 taken. Nightmare finds the man, puts him down. Raza gonna go for this off angle, wants to put this team away, this team fight away. 85% for Remember Me. They do have all the chances to win this point, and it looks like that's what's gonna happen though. But you see the re-engage step up. Raza does get found out, finds Dre out, but it doesn't matter. Not Your Average Waifu lose this point while committing the wall. Hammer goes down here. Raza finds a blackout. So both tanks traded. Nightmare finally goes down to the Lucio here. It looks like both teams gonna see who can get the better. You see Jericho and Raza stepping up, trying to find it. But the speed is good for Grim on the side of Not Your Average Waifus. They're gonna be able to set up first on this point. Current score is 1-1 on the map, 2-2 in the series. Both these two teams fighting like dogs, trying to get this point. You see the TP for the Sozo. Both Kitsune rushes out. Hammer in a very difficult situation. A lot of frontal damage going to be thrown into him. It is found out. Blackout stepping forward, finding Raza here. Nightmare does get the trade onto Dre. Ali does find Nightmare. We're still fighting here, apparently. Just Sam going down. Currently, remember me just getting out speeded here. This Lucio for Grim doing quite lovely work. Talking about which Jericho finds Dre at the end of it. But you see, with these two TPs, the positioning that they, Not Your Average Waifus gets and then speeds from has been a real problem for Remember Me. As it currently stands. The Russian current is on, and it's on to Jericho. Trying to find this backline is good for it. However, no follow-up can be used. The Annihilation is popped by Not Your Average Waifu's tank. A lot of damage is it. He's looking for any sustain. You see Raza throwing a back shot into it. Does find the kill via Nightmare. Remember, we do have point presence here, but Ali finds Nightmare. It is just Sam's healing left, and Sam goes down as Dre finds not one but two here. Hammer does get Dre at the end. It is a 3v2 as Hammer falls down. The pulse bomb going wide for Jericho. And is traded out. Remember Me had some difficulties there, as this point's going to get captured over by your Not Your Average Waifu. As now we are on map point. You see the transition over to the Lucio, recognizing the problem was the tempo here. Remember, he kind of getting ran over. They're going to be the first on point to set up how they want to defense this. But with this TP, you can basically throw it anywhere you want, get anywhere you want. Speaking of which, here comes the OC for both teams, both sides. Hammer does get the better of it, though. The chunk damage is good, and that's going to force Not Your Average Waifu to back up. You see the TP out. Dre's going to stay a little longer, see if they can get any damage thrown in. Remember, he's going to get the first point progress here. They need it to keep this reverse sweep going. A wall Kitsune rush used by the side of Not Your Average Waifu. Remember, he needs to kite this beautifully. However, Sam does get caught out, a bit messy for him. Ali does find Jericho. So that's going to be a team reset now for the next fight. However, remember, he might have stayed a little too long in this mid-fight area here. Hammer looking for Dre, the kill onto Dre. Cannot get it. Has to get booped back. Difficult situation. The Annihilation is popped, so the tables might have turned here. Blackout found out by Hammer. Annihilation canceled here, knowing he's not going to get too much value out of here. A beautiful re-engage here. A lot of players on the side. Jericho looking for that kill onto Lucio. However, the Suzu's going to prevent that right now. Remember Me, 42%. Not Your Average Waifu, 47. Remember Me does have the lead right now at 52%. And counting, however, this beat is on the board for Not Your Average Waifu. Here comes the Kitsune rush by Remember Me. They're just going to throw the beat for your Not Your Average Waifu. Hammer, a lot of damage. Needs some sustain here and needs to kite away. Sam in a difficult situation in the vortex. The Annihilation is popped. He's trying to find Sam in this. The beat is now out and is good for 3 here. Jericho found out. Blackout does trade out Raza. This Annihilation has been going on for quite some time. Some might say the maximum time. Needs that health. Does go down. It is a 2v2 right now. It is Nightmare and Jericho versus Dre and Grim. Jericho gets the better of Dre. Now it is just the Lucio on the side of Not Your Average Waifus, and it is good. Beely does come in and kill Nightmare. However, the rest of Remember Me is back in just the nick of time. 87% and counting for Remember Me. They finally get the lead back in here. We'll start questioning if the touch is going to come in. Looks like Blackout wants it. A beautiful boot back by Sam, and that's going to be all she wrote. It is 2-2. A map point on match point. This could go either way. Both teams looking to win this one. And we're going back to the only one point that hasn't been used. Fountains. Also on the board right now, currently favoring Not Your Average Waifu with the wall that's been huge. Here comes the Kitsune rush. The OC has been popped. Dre holding onto that wall. Raza holding onto this big angle here. Not going to get support on the high ground that we need. Blackout in a difficult situation here. Half health. Both teams are setting up on the point. However, the angles,
This ends now.
the single brawliness of Not Your Average Waifu is going to favor them. Remember, you're not taking too many angles. Hammer does go deep. Cuts off line of sight for support via the wall. Goes down and is punished for that. Raza does find a kill onto the Dre. Sam goes down. Remember, you need to understand that this wall, as soon as you cross it, the whole team needs to be there to sustain. Raza going to go down last second. But there's multiple indications right there. Not multiple indications. Multiple times that Remembery's tank just steps too forward into that wall, cuts off line of sight support, and eventually is melted. You can see how they engage. Remembery at 32% and counting. Right now, only ults on the side of the border. Both teams and their Kitsune Rush. Talk about which the Kitsune Rush is out. Not really kiting that. Beat is out. Hammer in a difficult situation. LOS again from his support line here. Not LOS, but take too much damage here. 70% and counting for Not Your Average Waifu as Jericho goes down. We're in Final Fight territories coming up here soon. 80% and counting for your Not Your Average Waifu. Remember, he does not look like they have a foot in the door on this point. 93% and counting. Sam going for the touch. Does not get it. And I think that's going to be it. Remember me. Go down without a single point progress on that. A tragic way to go down. To transition over to the intermission score. As Remember Me lose to Not Your Average Waifus 3-2